PIL Course. You have all been here present every day for the first 8 lectures, and I think 8 lectures, and we're starting the 9th one today with a celebrity who all of you have heard of if you don't know. Normally, if I was doing an introduction to our speaker today, you would be listening politely to what I would have to say. But I see a lot of people smiling, there is some excitement in the air at what Justice Gautam Patel is going to say. And that is because Justice Gautam Patel is known to all of us Goans who are interested in environment law and protecting Goa. He delivered a wonderful judgment in a matter where Goa Foundation and a few other litigants had come to the High Court because the ministry had issued a notification transferring the jurisdiction of cases from Goa, from NGT Pune, where we could go quite easily and come back, to Delhi, which was far away, for the convenience of the government. The government said that there were flights to go up and down, but we found it difficult. Now, we succeeded in that judgment, but the judgment is not important. What is important is the paragraph with Justice Gautam Patel, I think in a moment of enlightenment from on high, or wherever he gets enlightenment from, delivered. And I would like to read that paragraph, which is quoted and re-quoted in newspapers, in articles, several times. I'm sure you have read it. Nevertheless, I will read excerpts. I have modified it, Justice Patel, made it a bit shorter, so that I can complete on time. And you know, whenever I wonder whether it's worth it going to the courts again and again, challenging government decisions, this one paragraph tells me why I should go. So let me read what I have abridged. This is an extraordinary state in more ways than one. A place where, perhaps more than anywhere else, sky, sea and earth meet. From horizon to horizon, it is a land of abundant richness. It is a land of confluences where diverse strands meet and coexist. And in a time of apparently incessant strife and discord, it is still mostly a liberal land. It is a kind and gentle land, of a kind and gentle people. Its greatest asset is its environment and ecology. Its rivers and riverbanks, its beaches, lakes and clear streams, its dense forests, its low hills and fertile fields, its boulders and even trees shrouded with moss and vines and lichened in the rains, its ridiculously brilliant sunsets. One needs only to turn off an arterial road to either east or west to see all this firsthand, and all of it within but a few minutes. If the NGT in Pune has so many cases coming from Goa, it is because the people of Goa perceive that there is something of value here to protect. These are, that is all our cases, are after all struggles for a better tomorrow. This or that particular case may be lost, but no cause should be allowed to be lost for want of trying. For this is something none can deny. This is a land truly worth fighting for. Beautiful words, so poetic, so true. And that is why we are here. We are here to see if we can learn a new craft, the law, in order to protect Goa. We have fought on the streets, we have made protest letters, we have gone on hunger strikes, we have done lots of things, but many of us have not tried the law, and that is why we are here. Now, while Goans came to know very recently of Justice Patel, he is a very well-known person in Mumbai. As a lawyer at the Bombay High Court, he appeared in a large number of PILs relating to protection of national parks, protection of mangroves, town and country planning issues, protection of open spaces, etc. So when he became a judge, obviously he knew the environment issues well and was able to adjudicate on, in terms of law, the cases that came before him. A few months ago, on 26th April this year, I remember the date because he shares a birthday with Lord, so I know 26th April. I may forget the year Gautam, but the date I know. On 26th April, he retired as a judge, but I dare say that his efforts on matters of public interest, not just environment, but also civil liberties, fundamental rights. He was talking to me just a few minutes ago about citizens with disabilities, mental disabilities, physical disabilities, blind, people who want to participate in government, and everybody put on the same level where those with a disability have to somehow accommodate to those with all their faculties. So thank you, Justice Gautam Patel, for giving us your valuable time to speak to future PIL litigants on a very important issue that we must all understand. What is it that courts can do and what is it they cannot do? Now, Justice Patel informs me that after this I will not be able to come back to the stage again. He says, I will handle everything, out you go. So, it's an interactive session, and if he runs short of your questions and so on, I'll come back. But otherwise, over to you, Justice Gautam Patel. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Couple of things. First of all, it's really intimidating not having lawyers. You know what to do with lawyers. This is very difficult. Second, and I don't mean this in a facetious or flippant manner, but it's really, really great to be back home. 2017, I hadn't expected this to happen, but it did. Goa just got to me. It became a home, partly for good reasons, and very often for not so very good reasons. So what's going to happen in the next hour, whatever time we've got, is I'm not going to give you a lecture. We're going to share experiences and hopefully we'll be able to find new pathways, new avenues together. I can't think of anything more boring than being here on a Friday evening and lecturing to someone. So we're not really going to do that at all. I must tell you that my time here in 2017 was colorful in ways that I did not imagine. So we were to start court on Monday. I arrived here with the family on a Saturday, and we decided that we would, because we've arrived in Goa, go off to Miramar Beach. Off we went. And the first thing that we saw was this whacking great casino that had landed up on the beach. Lucky 7, you remember. And I took one look at it and said, that thing is not staying here if I have anything to do with it. Unfortunately for the owners of that ship, their case was listed on Monday, very low down on the list. And because that's not the habit in Goa in the High Court, because it was low down, they thought it would never reach hearing. And so somebody tried to mention it in the morning and get it to trial. I read it. So he gets up and said, oh, serial number 37. I said, 37? That's lucky 7, unlucky 37, wait. So he reached by 12:30 or quarter to 1. And I said, what are you going to do about this boat of yours? No, it's complicated. I said, nothing's complicated. Before the monsoon goes and before I go, that ship has to go. Because this seemed to me, even at that time, to represent a fundamental disconnect in what Goa should be and what I think on our watch we have allowed Goa to become. This evening, I want to be able to explore with you the possibilities of what we can do and how we go about it. I'm not here to lecture. I know why I'm here. Well, the principal reason I'm here is Norma. When she calls you, you don't get to say no. So that's the most reason. But other than that, I'm here to listen to you, so please speak, to learn, share a few thoughts and experiences, if possible, suggest or guide. But I'm also going to challenge some of your thinking. And I want to disabuse you of some preconceived notions that may have come to you and which you may have come to accept. So, I know why I'm here. I want to know why you're here. Why are you here today? Anyone?
To learn.
To learn what?
To learn how to address the public issues that Goa is.
Alright, that's good. To learn how to address public issues. What's the difficulty you're having about that?
Well, I've been trying it at the panchayat level, and it has just played on deaf ears. So
Could you specify that? What's the issue?
specify
What's the issue?
the issues of the fields being covered with soil, with all the rubble and stuff, and houses coming up on that rubble. So then I get to be the bad person. And
Okay, now this is precisely what I want to be able to take apart. There is a concern here. Do I take it that everybody's got this as a shared experience at some level or the other? Is that true? It happens to be about fields, soils, houses. It could be about solid waste. It could be about water supply, car parking, shacks on the beach, whatever it is. Is that alright? So how many of you have actually gone to court? Any court? Okay, so was this in the form of a PIL, a civil suit? What did you do? No, you'll have to take the mic.
Civil suit.
Civil suit.
Yeah.
Okay, so please bear this in mind because we're going to explore the contours of what can and can't be done. That's the topic today. And how a civil suit will distinguish or be distinguished from other forms of litigation. Has anybody gone to court for a PIL, not a civil suit? What was the issue you took up?
It was allotment, wrongly allotted to people who did not meet the criteria by the government.
What land was allotted?
Land plots were allotted to high ranking officials.
Alright, so that's...
I wrote a letter.
No, that's okay. So that's a question of governance and accountability. Who did an environmental PIL? As in the PIL. Okay, we've got two in front here. What was it about?
About coal pollution in Vasco City.
Very good. Coal pollution. Alright. Excellent. You remember the series of articles in 2018 or thereabouts in the Indian Express
Yes.
that dealt with coal?
I was the petitioner in that.
You were the petitioner there. Excellent. Outstanding. Yours?
I had filed a PIL to revive the three authorities of Goa.
As in the body.
Yeah,
Why?
because it was constituted back in 1984, and since then they had not been active and with their duties of conserving trees in Goa. So basically,
Okay, can I ask the deadly question? What was your experience in court?
it was quite smooth in the sense we got a favorable judgment, but then the state went ahead and amended the law.
Yours? What was your experience?
poll is still being handled in Vasco because
What happened to the PIL?
it just wavered away because of the pandemic and all that. So
You've not revived it since?
not since now, but it's
Why
going
not?
to get.
Why not?
I think it was an issue for a long time, and then the authorities started acting in a way that is favorable to the people. They started covering the stacks and all that. But the most important thing that they have not done is they are not building sheds, which is mandated by permissions that have been given to them. So therefore, I plan on reviving that.
Good. Okay, so let me just put a few thoughts out there, then we'll carry this forward. Going to court is never easy. It's definitely not a picnic. It takes a lot of effort, a lot of time. We will be looking at one great case about a very recent one. There are many. We'll take a recent one. And this idea that somebody should do something, or more colloquially, that somebody should put a PIL, is nonsensical. Behind everything that a public interest litigant does, or Goa Foundation does, is a monumental amount of hard work. You have to actually see this in operation to understand how complex and how serious this business is. Because the attempt on the other side is always to try and trivialize and diminish what has gone into it. When we see this, we see two or three things simultaneously. We see the problem. We get an understanding, not a full understanding, but a glimpse of the magnitude of the problem. Then we have an advocate, somebody like Mopa, who tries to guide us through a path to a solution. This is important. It's an important skill. It's an important strategy, because people don't get up there and just stop it, blanket ban. That's not what these PILs do. They will all fail otherwise. I want to tell you this because it's important to your understanding so that you don't get this level of frustration when you're dealing with issues. There are three routes. Civil court we heard of. I'll tell you the distinction there. There is the more familiar approach to the High Court. And there is, of course, always the possibility of a petition directly in the Supreme Court. There is also now the requirement that a certain class of cases must go to the National Green Tribunal, or the NGT. Now, many of you will have filed or used the provisions of the RTI Act to get information. You have to understand the distinction between a writ either in the Supreme Court or the High Court and a suit, and the distinction between a writ and a PIL to get a complete understanding of what a court will do and will refuse to do. Typically, usually, a suit is between two individuals or two groups of individuals who are canvassing private rights. There is, of course, a type of suit called a class action suit, where the person who is filing the civil suit does so on behalf of a body of people, but it is tightly regulated by the Civil Procedure Code. You have to sue in a representative capacity. Now, writ petitions in PILs simplify this somewhat. Please understand what a writ petition is. The writ petition actually owes its origins to English law. a series of writs that could be issued by superior courts to government authorities, commanding them, quashing their orders, exercising the power of judicial review, which we will discuss in just a little while. These were known as high prerogative remedies. Only the High Court could issue them. This was the prerogative of High Court. And this is typically what a writ petition would seek. It would seek what is called a certiorari for quashing an order by an administrative officer, which you say is illegal or cannot be sustained, and will also seek what is called a mandamus or a mandatory command. Tell them to stop destroying trees, or tell them to do compulsory afforestation. A PIL is, to put it bluntly, a writ petition on steroids. It is the same thing as a writ petition, except it has two other requirements. You should not have, as the petitioner, you must not have a personal interest in the outcome of the litigation. You must be doing it for a larger interest. Now, this law evolved because the Supreme Court expanded the concept of what is called locus or standing. What is your right to sue? In most lawsuits, law cases, the first question a judge will ask, how are you affected? Why have you come to court? How does this bother you? In a PIL, this is not a question, provided you are able to satisfy the court that you are doing this not for your own interest, but in a larger shared interests of the community, and that it is a question that is worth the court's time and effort. It is not meant for private litigations, and this you have to bear in mind, particularly in Goa, and that was our experience, because we have far too many cases here of feuding neighbors, or one owner of a bar fighting with his brother-in-law who owns the other half of it. That's not the public interest element at all. This is not something that is going to fly in the name of a PIL. When you come to court, and this is what I really want to test now with you, and let's take actual environmental cases. So let's stop here for a moment and ask, in Goa, the state of Goa, the whole area, south to north, what according to you are the top 5 or the top 10 environmental issues that affect everybody? Tree felling. Is that what somebody said?
Hill cutting.
Hill cutting. Alright. Hill cutting is one. We'll analyze each of these in a minute. Hill cutting. What's?
Tree felling.
Hill cutting, tree felling. CRZ. Alright.
Destruction of the beach industries.
Noise pollution.
Noise.
Noise pollution.
Garbage.
Solid waste management.
Too many constructions.
I think drinking water. Drinking water. Overbuilding, too much construction.
Too much formalization.
Mega projects.
Meaning what?
Too many structures, too many buildings in a small village.
Corruption.
That's not an environmental issue.
It affects the
That in India is a state of mind.
No, the green
It defines us.
It affects the environment, the corruption, illegal greenfield.
Okay, so now just have a look at what you've got. You've got a huge spectrum. I'm leaving aside corruption.
No, I'm sorry.
Everything from solid waste management to land use, traffic, noise, construction, big drilling projects. Okay, so now the next deadly question. Don't answer right away, please think about this. Let's take 2 or 3 of these. Diversion, you said fields? Being diverted to construction. Alright, let's take this one to begin with. Diversion of fields and farmlands to building activity. Question. What's your data?
Factual.
Just saying factual doesn't make it so. What is the hard data? Numbers. I'm trying to tell you it's not that easy. This is what courts remember ask. You have to go to courts saying the courts don't know this. It's right under their noses, but they don't know this. They deal in facts. What's the hard data? Question. Be prepared to get this data by whatever means you can. Some of it is in the public domain, some is under RTI. It needs to be analyzed. It needs to be presented. We had so much land which was part of farms. This has been diverted into building activity. And here's the next question. So what? What's the environmental angle? That requires science. But this is going to be the effect of the loss of farmlands to a shared environment. Okay. What will you ask for? What is the relief you want from the court? Stop everybody from building.
Not in the agricultural land.
Alright, so you think that's going to fly? What about somebody who is the owner of the agricultural land? He has rights over it, including the right to sell it or to convert it to non-agricultural purposes. No, he has the right, it's a part of the ownership right. It's a private right. What happens when this larger interest of protecting farmlands clashes or collides head-on with a private right? Which way do you think a court will go? I'm trying to tell you that these are not easy questions. It is not simply a matter of standing up in court and talking about this. Please do not underestimate the kind of effort and struggle that goes into every single petition that Claude and Mopa bring to court. It's a very elaborate, carefully thought out exercise. Let's take the other issue, noise pollution. I don't have an answer to this. Let's take the, sorry.
My question is, if when you're talking about converting fields to construction, if it's factual in a zoning map that it is fields and it's in an illegal operation, can't that be questioned?
Of course it can be questioned, but I'm saying that that's a specific issue that you have to bring to court saying this was zoned for a given purpose. The diversion of this land is illegal and contrary to the zoning. This is the case that has to be brought to court, and you have to be able to show that you have no particular interest in that chunk of land.
But in the
that is not
picture,
in your neighbor's land that you are fighting over.
but what about the bigger picture, environmental picture?
But which is exactly why you have to be precise about that. What about the bigger picture?
I mean, you're converting land that is illegally being converted,
So what?
and that's less farmland for the locals.
So what? So what? No, I'm asking you, what's the environmental impact? See, don't assume that because green has become grey or brown, that people are going to be able to articulate that this is an environmental problem. It's your job to be able to articulate that issue.
What
Is it
would
going to
be-
have an effect on
In that
climate?
case, what would be the way forward?
Now this is what we are about to explain. This is precisely what we are going to test here. Now noise, just a second. Let's take this question about noise. Somebody mentioned noise pollution? Alright. What's the issue with noise pollution?
It's basically a violation of the Supreme Court order. It is violation of Supreme Court order.
So when you say basically there is means where?
Yeah, it's,
I talk about Kalungut, I talk about Panji,
It's-
Madgaon.
it's all over.
This is not an answer that will fly in a court. All over is too imprecise. It's not going to work. Have you measured the sound levels?
You have to get the instrument.
Correct, you do. Somebody has to. We've got noise activists in Bombay who go around. If the High Court has a function on its lawns, the activist is at the gates of the High Court measuring our decibel levels. Actually, we're doing construction. Sumaira Abdul Ali is there with her decibel meter. You are asking the court to assume that the court knows and will accept that it's all over. It won't. It won't. It will ask you, what data have you got, Mr. Petitioner? No, I don't know, I can't afford it, Mr. Peter. Dismissed. The result of a dismissal like this is worse than not filing the petition at all. Understand this. If you are not going to do this systematically, don't do it at all. The consequence of doing a half-baked petition and losing it is that it gives encouragement to those who are polluting, who are creating noise, because they've just defeated a petition. So now they can make as much noise as they like. Forest diversion. Forest diversion. Cutting of trees. So large question. Should no trees be cut anywhere, ever, for any reason?
The trees, I mean, I'm talking about on my personal level. There are lots of trees around my place that are.
But that's I don't want to talk about your case.
Okay, well.
I definitely don't want to talk
Okay,
about it.
I'm talking about.
I'm talking about the state of Goa.
Okay, I'm talking about the Race Mabush, the Loda project and the Bhutani project.
Okay.
They have literally cut the hills and it's on a slope and they are trying to do development there by cutting massive trees of teak and various other, really beautiful trees
So
that
what-
provide.
So other than coming to a meeting in Mapsa, what do you want to know about it?
We have agitated,
Agitated how?
by our presence.
I'm talking about courts.
Well,
I'm not interested in agitating. You can
No,
go and
there
agitate.
are two
want
cases
to-
about the Race Mabush and the Bhutani
Are you a
project.
party to any of those? What statistics have you got?
I'm
Have you
an
seen the
activist.
order? Have you seen the order?
No.
Everybody, I'm sorry, wrong answer. Everybody here is an activist. You had jolly well better be an activist if you are here today and if you are in Goa and you are at all worried about Goa. I am telling you this. I don't know why you would want to be here in Goa and not be an activist. Look around this state. Our Chief Justice a few months ago, few weeks ago, has told the lawyers in the Goa High Court, what are you people doing? Do you know what is happening to this state? It's in your hands. It's your home. It's your land. How can you not be an activist for this? I don't understand it. We just want to protest. Oh, it's a very, very bad thing. Somebody will write in Herald and somebody will write in Gomantak or whatever it is. It doesn't stop there. You will win. You will also lose. Do you stop fighting? Is this an option? I'm trying to give you a roadmap here and tell you that it's not as simple as saying, oh look, what a terrible thing. Yeah, it's terrible. What are you doing about it? Other than phoning Norma and saying, Norma, do something. That's also not an option. The correct option is to say, Norma, this is happening, can I help? That is an option. But this, that we had some protest, who's got the hard data? What are the permissions that these builders got? How close are they to the high tide line? Is there a CRZ violation? Is there a violation of the zoning plans? Is there a hill slope notification or restriction that has been violated? Have those permissions been challenged in court? This is what you must bring to a court in this fashion. You have to demonstrate the illegality of what is being done and be able to say that this has wide environmental consequences, adverse consequences, which you must be able to spell out. Please do not use the Mahamantras of environmental climate change. Lovely. Everything's related to climate change. You've got rain in November. Climate change. Right. Unless you're Donald Trump, you'll agree that there is climate change. What is it about this particular issue that affects climate change? Can you say climate change if you've got a noise pollution issue? No. These have to be sifted. Now I want to tell you this. You have to be clear in a dual understanding when you're confronting these things. One is a recognition of the problem. Tree cutting, hill slopes, loss, air pollution, water pollution, noise pollution. Two, you have to be clear about what is the possible relief that you can get from a court. This is where you need the advice of an environmental activist lawyer friend. They will guide you saying this is possible or that is possible. They will also tell you that if you want to do this, we will need to challenge this, this and this. File such an RTI query and get these answers. Please remember one other thing. Getting no answer or getting an adverse answer, which is no answer, in RTI is not the end of the road, because you can always go to the High Court to compel the information that was denied to you under RTI. That information can always be obtained. But you must have data. You must be part of citizens' groups. Do not make the mistake of trying to work on this on your own until you buy. First, going to court on your own is a very, very daunting and challenging task. It can be expensive. It's nerve-wracking. It really is. You have to be able to do this through some coalition. It doesn't have to be a formal coalition, but it has to be part of a group. That's the most effective way of doing this, because you have a group that says, here are the plurality of voices and what are we agitating for, which is crucial. We are seeking the enforcement of our fundamental rights. Or we are seeking an order asking that the government should adhere to, though this is difficult and a technical question of law, a directive principle of state policy which you really can't enforce through a court, but you can invoke it. there are three things, fundamental rights which are the rights. There are fundamental duties which are supposed to be the duties of citizens. And there are directive principles which tell us what the state ought to do. You can enforce fundamental rights but not the other two. So what is the use of having the other two? You can invoke those to support your case that this needs to be done. Now, in the fundamental rights, there are two fundamental rights that are critical of environmental litigation. The first is Article 14, which is the right to equality. It has two parts: equality before the law and equal protection of laws. And the second is the right to life in Article 21. The right to life is something that has been expanded. And India was one of the first countries to say that the right to a clean and wholesome environment is part of the right to life. Recently, in 2024, the Supreme Court has expanded this even further by saying it's a fundamental right of every citizen to be protected against the adverse impacts of climate change. That's your right. You can invoke it. But you have to find a mechanism to invoke it. And let me tell you what is it that courts can't do in just a moment. How many of you have heard this expression, judicial review? Okay, so this is a very, very old concept. It goes back 250 years. Essentially, constitutional courts have the power to review on well-settled principles, and I'll discuss two of these: the actions of the executive and administrative authorities. So in this case, officer permits the diversion of zoned farmland for non-agricultural purposes to allow building. This order can be challenged in the public interest. It can be judicially reviewed. You can say this order is illegal, it violates 14, it is irrational, it is arbitrary, and when you do this, it affects not just mine, but citizens' right to life and to a clean environment, because it results in such and such environmental damage which you need to specify. That is the frame of this petition that you do for this case. For noise, it's slightly different. You would have to get into the health issue, because noise is tightly related to health. Noise levels are specified because above that they are dangerous and harmful to human health. But high noise levels are also damaging to wildlife. They have a direct impact. Now this you have to be able to study, get some data and bring it out there. And one of the best examples really is that in the years of silence in COVID, you saw what was happening to the wildlife. It was just beginning to emerge from everywhere that had been driven to hide, to escape the noise. The silences of those COVID years drew out the animals, everything from reptiles to mammals were coming out simply because this was their natural order of quiet. At the heart of it, you must understand that this is the one thing that distinguishes human beings from animals. People say lots of other areas of distinction. But human beings are the only species on the planet that believe they have a right to alter and destroy their own environment. No other species does this. No dolphin does this, no baboon does this, no great ape does this, no elephant does this. Its own environment. This is what we are doing. We are causing environmental destruction every single day, every waking minute, with everything that we have begun to do. This is a really, really serious problem. You have to be able to address this in a meaningful fashion. Now let me tell you, when you address fundamental rights, and let's go back and take these examples, we've done noise, we've done this, solid waste, so it's an urban issue. It may not be a great issue in a remote area, but it will be a significant issue in, let us say, Kalangud down the road. Correct? Who's been handling a solid waste garbage disposal issue? Anyone does address this or is even concerned about it? So what have you done about it?
Spoken to the panchayat.
Which one?
My Siori panchayat where I live got onto the garbage committee.
Okay, so let's break this down, take this as a test case. According to you, what is the problem?
The problem is the piling garbage everywhere, which is not sorted.
Hold on. Now, already we got two issues. Are we talking about segregation? Are we talking about recycling? Are we talking about collection? Or are we talking about disposal?
All of the above. All of the above are the problems.
So you will have to deal with
garbage.
each of these, starting with that there is no systematic garbage disposal or there is no landfill, which is it? What are you saying?
There is no systematic collection. Then there's no sorting. Then some of it.
So where does it go?
So the door-to-door that is collected goes to the Saligaon facility. But
Which is what?
Which is just, I mean, there's a whole MRF, so they do, getting out the things they need.
Is it incinerated? Is it a landfill? What is it?
It from there goes into a landfill and to incinerator.
No, you have to be utterly precise about this. You have to be utterly precise about this because if you are going to be unsure of your footing here, let's be clear about this. As a general rule, courts are not enthusiastic about taking up your petition. Judges are terribly overworked. They are looking for the slightest reason to throw you out. You give them something that is throw-outable and you will be thrown out. You have to make it so strong that the court really has no choice but to intervene. You've got to get that court both shaken and stirred. That's the only way to do this. The judge has to look at this and say, oh my God, what is this? So you have to be precise in your delineation of the chain. Now in Mumbai, when we did these petitions, we knew exactly which were the two garbage dumps, the landfills, how high they become, 18 meters, 22 meters, philosopher. And what were the destinations, the tonnage that was going in every day, it was being collected, the problems of the rag pickers, how to be solved, and you have to come up with a solution with technical instruments about how this mountain of garbage could be bio-reduced to something that is flat. Well, that's the kind of petition that achieves two purposes. One, it enables or facilitates a court in taking swift action, but very importantly, it puts the authorities on the back foot. They don't have then wriggle room because everything you're saying is true and they don't have an answer to it. You have got to craft your petition and your findings and your data and your research in that form. The court is not going to get into a fact-finding exercise for you. This is something that you can't go to court and say, oh, I think it's so bad, you do something. was not going to do this. This is what weighs with courts when they are entertaining PIs. When the court is enchanted with the matter, it takes it to another level. It then expands the scope on its own. It can sometimes say, all right, you don't need to be a petitioner. We'll run the petition on our own suo motu. Doesn't matter. It engages with the issue. These are the powers that are in the court. But to get to that stage, you have to have a petition that is more or less complete or at least sufficiently richly detailed so that the court can't get rid of it as being something that is trivial. Challenging orders of authorities is an important component. You ask for a writ of certiorari, you say that this executive order is not only bad in law but has these environmental consequences. Sometimes you can also challenge laws. Very difficult to do. Environmental laws, very difficult to do. Can be done. But a challenge to a statute has to be backed by very strong data. Take the CRZ notification. A very good example. It's a law. A recent iteration of the CRZ may be suboptimal, allowing construction too close to the coast. Let's assume. You want to challenge it. You can't go to court and say, oh, I think it's bad. You have to get there and be able to show why it is bad or why that legislation is manifestly arbitrary. It is arbitrary because it will result in a certain form of environmental damage. Because it doesn't sufficiently achieve a purpose of protecting the coastline. You have to be precise about these things. Unless you do this, there will be difficulties. You will also have problems when it comes to enforcement. And enforcement in environmental matters usually takes two forms. Either there is contempt jurisdiction, or there is what we call a rolling mandamus, one order follows after the other. I have never seen, ever, a government officer punished for not doing his job. I have never seen him lose his job, his pension, his salary, anything. It should happen. It doesn't happen. And this has a result on administration because they continue to do the wrong thing again and again and again. Now I am asking you this, and I want to give you one relatively recent example. And if you've flown into Mopa recently, coming into Mopa by air, I mean, ever since Mollem Airport started, you've flown into North. What do you see as you fly? Huh? That's the tabletop. Around it, what do you see? Dense forest cover, lakes, and forests right to the horizon. Now, this is a fantastic story. Mopa in Permanent is part of a large contiguous belt of forests from Radhanagari, Dolamar, spanning 3 states, Maharashtra, Goa, Karnataka. Said to be included in the Western Ghats because it's been so fragile ecosystems. Somebody decides we need a greenfield airport in North Goa. So question, can you challenge this decision to have a greenfield airport in North Goa on its own? I'm taking this as a case study. What's your view? Can you? No. It's a decision which is a matter of pure policy. Courts will not interfere in matters of policy. Whether to have an airport in North Goa is not a decision the courts will interfere with. But we need to have an airport in North Goa and it needs to be here. That is the location, the site. Can that be challenged? But don't confuse the two. Be clear about it. If you mean the second, don't challenge the first. We are challenging the location of the airport here in North Goa. Saying it can be in North Goa, but just not here. What would be your grounds for challenge?
Forest cover.
Forest cover. What else?
Animals.
Animals, wildlife. Wildlife, forests, wildlife, habitat, water sources, water resources. So just sitting here off the top of your heads without doing any great research, it's according to you abundantly clear to anyone except a lunatic that you can't have an airport here. Airport has a concessionaire. The project proponent is the state of Goa. So it does the one thing that every project proponent has to do. So now just watch where I'm going with this. It prepares an environmental impact assessment. What is an EIA? What is an EIA? Anyone has ever encountered it?
NEI assesses the pros and cons of what that particular project.
No, it doesn't. An EIA is not a cost-benefit analysis. An EIA simply assesses the environmental consequences of a particular project. Now, this is important because there is a well-developed principle in law, in environmental law, called the precautionary principle. I'll explain what this means. Usually when you go to court and you make an allegation of any kind, my neighbor is a cheat and he has invaded my land. If you make the allegation, it is on you to prove it. But in environmental law, we have inverted this. If you are proposing a project, the burden is on you to show that the project is environmentally safe or benign. If a group challenges your project, the group doesn't have to show that your project is dangerous. It is you, the project proponent, who have to show that it is not environmentally dangerous, that it is environmentally benign. This is the precautionary principle. Why does it arise? Simply because man destroys his environment. Everything we do on land is some level of destruction. So, how do we control this? If you are proposing a building, an office building, commercial building, factory building, you show us that your building is environmentally benign. It has no effluents, it has no smokestacks, it has no water discharges, or it meets the statutory mandated norms. This is the basis for an EIA, an environmental impact assessment. Above all, an EIA needs to be truthful, accurate, and complete about that site. The state government produced an EIA for Mopa, which was anything but. According to this EIA, the Mopa area has no forests. no reserve forest, no proposed reserve forest. There is no water body there that is likely. There are no mammals, none, zero. Zero. Here's the interesting thing. Look what happens. Federation of Rainbow Warriors in South Goa challenges the, remember what I've been telling you, environmental clearance granted to the state of Goa by the Ministry of Environmental Forests on the basis of this EIA. It is challenging an administrative decision. It says this is arbitrary, illegal, unlawful, irrational, all the rest of it. It does this challenge in the NGT, and the NGT in its infinite wisdom said, yeah, well, you know, it's okay. The EIA is not up to standard. You put in this, you put in that, it will work. You put in some additional safeguards. Federation of Rainbow Warriors and an individual, Hanuman Aroskar, go to the Supreme Court in 2019. That decision of the Supreme Court in 2019 is one tremendous step forward. It analyzes the EIA completely and it finds it inexplicable that the state of Goa and the state of Maharashtra could have ever produced information and data like this. And it explodes the EIA. It tears it to shreds. It does not cancel the environmental clearance or EC. Why? Because whether to cancel the EC or to grant the EC is a matter of discretion of the MOEF, Environmental Appraisal Committee. The court will not substitute its decision for that of a body. It's the general law. But it says, and I'm reciting this, neither the decision-making process, that is the manner in which the decision was taken, nor the decision, which decision? To grant the environmental clearance, can pass legal muster. Now it asks the MOEF and its Environmental Appraisal Committee to re-examine. Now my view that the MOEF and its EAC could have only done one thing. It could have re-looked at the EIA. Says, sorry, this is substandard. We are cancelling the environmental clearance. That didn't happen. They came back in 2020 saying we constituted this body of some 20 people, including somebody from CSIR and somebody from HUDCO, somebody from here, somebody from there. And we got this additional information. Now there are reserve forests. We agree there are reserve forests. Now there are proposed reserve forests. We agree. There are lakes. There are animals. There are mammals. But they are not very big. Not very big. So it's only environmentally important if you have a tiger or an elephant. Really? What's Radhanagiri? It's a sanctuary. Migration corridors. Wildlife, big cats have been spotted here in the past. We know this. Then the Supreme Court says, you know, now that they've got all this data, it's okay, we'll get some additional safeguards. Let them plant more trees in the various villages and we'll let the airport continue. How? What is the message that this is sending out? that you as a formidable environmental activist group, Federation of Rainbow Warriors, an individual, Hanuman Araskar, can succeed in 2019 and yet ultimately fail in the big game and the project goes through. Results are unpredictable. But what does this tell us today? It tells us one extremely important thing. You may have lost, we may have lost that particular plateau to the Mopa airport. But does this mean that we are going to sit on our hands for the rest of Mopa and the rest of the region? Or are we going to get ourselves seriously organized to protect the rest that still remains today? That is the challenge before us. That is what we are going to have to do. You have to be like one of those bobo dolls. You punch it once, it just bounces back and keeps coming back and keeps soldiering on. This is what you have to be. There will be these downsides to this, inexplicable losses. There is nothing you can do to avoid them. But you have to keep moving on. See, I'll tell you this one thing I must tell you. Just bear in mind why we are doing this. I don't want to labor the point too much when it comes to the details of the Constitution. But at some point I think we must all keep in mind those fabulous words in the preamble to the Constitution. I keep teaching this to law students because everybody takes this for granted and I'm saying no, don't. This is us. This is us as a nation. This is us as a people. Just read this with me, hear this with me, and then I'll not take more of your time. It says, we, the people of India, that's us, having solemnly resolved that we did it for ourselves, nobody did it for us, to constitute India into sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic. Democracy, we elect, republic, rule of law, and to secure all its citizens justice, social, economic, and political, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship, equality of status and opportunity, and to promote among them all fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual and the unity and integrity of the nation. In our Constituent Assembly, we do hereby adopt, enact, and give to ourselves this Constitution. This is not a fatwa or a mandate from a ruler. This is us. This is our charter. Everything flows from this. Your rights flow from this. Your right to demand. Don't pray. Don't hope. Demand. As a matter of right. Demand the noise pollution. Demand the trees not be cut. You are entitled to make this demand. I'm only here to tell you that when you do these and when you make these demands, you must do them reasonably aware of what the law demands from you or what courts will demand from you. What are the do's, what are the don'ts, and what are the pitfalls? I am going to end this. Michelle, thank you very much. She's just given me this book. Just wonderful. I want you to read this to you as an ending. The chapter is called What's So Special About Goa Anyway? A good friend gushes, as soon as I land, I feel relaxed. Another friend smiles sheepishly and confesses, we bar crawled through those dives in Anjuna, or was it Bagaton? I don't remember the details, but what a fun night. Goa equals beach plus party plus drink. Capital of hedonistic heaven, Ibiza of the East. When friends visit, they assume I am always ready to party, beach and restaurant hop with them. And then I can meet them anywhere at any time. The fact that Goa is a state, not a city, is lost. When I say I'm so sorry, I have to juggle work with managing my house with garden dogs. I can't make it to see you the south, it's too far. The repartee is always, what work in Goa? You are just making excuses, acting pricey. Come on, we are hanging in this cool shack in the day and then going drinking and dancing in the night. It's going to be so much fun. Every time I mention Goa, people's eyes light up, they're waiting for a smile. Everyone I meet wants to tell me their own Goa story. Friends have waxed. Goa is a state of mind, a place like no other planet, a piece of paradise. There is music in the air. And there's a little bit of the history of the city. And then, from page 28, is the author's version of the Goa tourism story, with which I'm sure all of you are familiar. She mentions, amongst other things, your beautiful casinos, our beautiful casinos. You say tomato, I say tomato. There are people who love the casinos. Didn't you know? Nobody wants to take up the matter of the casinos anymore. And more importantly, how Goa has become stereotyped. Its people have become stereotyped in Hindi cinema. The whole state has become a stereotype as a backdrop for partying crowds from Delhi, Bombay, Gujarat. I don't think that's what we are. And I don't think that these are annoyances. These are irritations. It is their loss, not ours, that they do not see or understand Goa and why they cannot see beyond partying on the beach. The problem, I think, in Goa is far more serious, is far more acute. Everything from coal handling to mining, to loss of forest cover, to diversion of lands to purposes never intended. I'm putting that as broadly as possible. But it's not going to be possible to work on and protect these if you leave it to a few groups or to a few people. There is only so much that Goa Foundation can do. Many of you will say, I've retired. What good am I? That's a mistake. Let me tell you, because I spent 20-25 years of my life working with NGOs in Maharashtra, and we were constantly in search of people who did not have to be with us full time, but who could contribute to things. We didn't want their money. We wanted their experience. We wanted their expertise. And we wanted just hands on deck. When you've got so much to do, if there is somebody who says, listen, I'll come in and write your accounts, Thank you very much. Would you please do that? If there is somebody who comes and says, do you need a newsletter to go out to your donors? I used to be in design, or I used to be in copywriting, or I did something in editing, I'll do that for you. There is somebody else who says, can I help you with data analysis? It's what I do. These are avenues that you can explore to help those who are on the front lines and are fighting for these battles, which according to me, Goa cannot afford to lose. It's as it is becoming pretty desperate. Am I right in that assessment? I am asking the last question. How is it ever going to get any better? Unless we all bend our shoulders to the wheel and find ways to do this. Is that not something worth trying? Thank you very much. I think I've received time. Questions?
So before I could proceed with the vote of thanks, if anyone has any questions, we have about 15 minutes. Make sure it's short and precise. A builder has a project of 31 villas with 31 swimming pools and in the file notings they have said that they have made provision for road from their survey number and they have sold their villas through RERA. They are using our access and the case was in the High Court and the High Court asked the TCP to dispose of the matter. TCP pushed it on the Panchayat and there is no response from the Panchayat. What can be done? The owner is creating problems for everyone.
Okay, let me tell you, first of all, this will not operate as a PIL because there is a direct interest, personal interest in that access. That doesn't mean that nothing can be done because, and actually this is a very good example, let me give you, of Goa Foundation and Goa and Siddharth. One of Goa Foundation's early cases was about the Siddharth Patel and amongst other things was about the right of public access to the Siddharth. The basis for that judgment later changed, but before the Supreme Court, Indira Jaising arguing for Goa Foundation argued this, that the principle in law, environment law, required that access to be maintained and the Supreme Court agreed. So there is a principle of access, right of way, and this can be canvassed even in a private litigation. Whether this will operate as an environmental litigation, I am doubtful, but certainly in a private litigation, this needs to be followed through. If the Panchayat is not acting on this, you must move the court and say that they have to act on this right away unless the case has been disposed of. That's really the only advice that I can give at this stage. Anyone else?
Yes, I wanted to state that Goa came into the limelight because of its beautiful green fields, its open trees, its hills, and its rivers and beaches. However, now it's become a tourist place for prostitution, for alcohol, for the casinos, and various other dance bars, and various other drugs, and various other activities. Now, what my question is, First, how do we stop the casinos? We were promised by Antonio Montserrat some time ago when he was minister that he would get rid of the casinos. But I was told that the government makes about 350 crores from each casino. So how do we address this? Is it going to become something like Mopa again? You know, some pass away. I mean, letting it go.
But in the context of an environmental litigation, this will able to show that the casinos are in and of themselves an environmental hazard.
Yes.
But then we will take protective measures.
No.
Now, if you want to get rid of casinos, which is not outside of the environmental line, that's a social problem. That's a social problem.
There are two problems here.
You challenge the law.
It's the social problem as
You
well
have
as
to challenge the law.
environmental.
You have to challenge the law. Because the law allows casinos in Europe if they are offshore or at a 5-star hotel. This is on the footing, presumably, that no burn ever goes to a 5-star hotel and no burn is ever offshore.
They're polluting the waters. The waters are all polluted.
But this
because
is not an answer to removing the casino. The casino is allowed by statute to challenge the statute. If they are polluting the waters, to get them to pay a fine to move on the basis, or to move somewhere or take steps to stop the pollution. You are muddling 5 different issues.
But it's harming the sea.
But you are muddling 5 different issues. Don't do this. Segregate the issues. Make sure that you don't say, oh, it's all very terrible. I want Goa to go back to being a place where it's not. Do not muddle issues. In fact, this is an important thing. You are better off doing a petition that is narrowly focused and takes one issue at a time, rather than trying to paint on this large canvas in some sort of an impressionistic manner and challenge everything under the sun. You should never, as a matter of litigation strategy, take on multiple issues in one thing. Never. It will get you nowhere. It's never worked.
So, I have another question from the public itself. On the 18th of April of this year, the Supreme Court issued a ruling in favor of a protected forest in the case of the state of Telangana and Mohammad Abdul Qasim, considering ecocentrism, right of nature and climate change, and their connection to the economy. My question is, why is ecocentrism not part of the basic structure?
The environment is not part of the basic structure. Ecocentrism is a nice little phrase that has been invented, or not invented, been adopted by the Supreme Court relatively recently to try and explain away all its past sins, where now large-scale development projects go through at severe environmental cost. If you have to look at the decision in the Sterlite plant at Tuticorin to understand what is it that the Supreme Court actually allowed to go through, or how in earlier orders they were allowed to, were inclined to commit strip mining in the Orissa hills for Vedanta. Ecocentrism on its own means what? That nobody should build anything anywhere. It can't ever be. But the question is, do you need to put a 6-lane highway to a tiger habitat? Also an elephant migration corridor? Can you go around? Can you go under it? Can you do without it? These are questions we are not prepared to ask. See, in India, our problem always has been that this phrase called sustainable development and balanced development, nobody knows what this means. And if you look at the pattern of Supreme Court judgments, the only balance you got is imbalance. The moment you have a challenge on this basis, there is a steady pattern that Prashant Bhushan and others write about. That if it's against big business always wins. If it's against NGOs, government always wins. It's very rarely, and in the odd case, that you will see the NGO. The Supreme Court made enormous strides in some cases. The Tamil Nadu case, what it did in the Citizens Forum, a whole long list of cases where it enunciated very strong principles. But its application of those principles has been extremely ordinary. Very often, and you'll find this as an experience in war, if the development has already been done, the chances are that the court will say, yeah, it was a very bad thing, but it's been done, so let it go. That's exactly what happened with Mopa. Mopa is an airport that should never have been built. It should never have been built. And this is the second time in 3 years that the Supreme Court has done something like this. It just did this a few months ago with the Himachal Court, which stopped the government from expanding an airport at Kabul in Kangra, saying you haven't even decided what the displacement issues are. You have no idea what the environmental issues are. You've just gone ahead developing an airport. Stop this and no forced resettlement till you give us a structured plan. Reasonable? Supreme Court stays the High Court order. Why? Balanced development. I don't know what that phrase means. Just how many bridges over bridges will you require in one? One on top of the other.
And all collapse.
The collapse on all you're going to see is a sea of concrete now.
Yes.
My question is not so much of a question, but a plan. For example, just following up on your past statement, the development of Mopa, you had all these new developments.
Sorry, I think it's a fan.
Developments like plots and field views, and there's a lot of development that's happening because of plants. Now, when you say that we should not.
Is this me or is this you?
It's the fan. It's neither, it's the fan.
Hello.
I don't think it's the fan.
That sounds like an answer from a government department. It's not you, it's not me, it's the man.
If the government
Just use mine. One escape the fan. Okay, I'll just ask you a question. What do we do about all this?
Yeah, given that this big project has passed and it's easier to stop one big project, now this big project is spurring a whole universe of development around it, and it's harder to stop smaller.
Okay, so here's the thing. I do not know for a fact, but I have every reason to believe that large chunks of land, including the separately protected intoxin slopes and plateaus, will already have been bought out. I suspect. I mean, I don't have hard data, because that's, as you say, inevitable when you have a project like here. You will have townships. You will also have a systematic. This is actually very interesting as a challenge. Systematic attempt to divert forest land to non-forest purposes. It's coming. Applications will be made, and in law, this means central government. Now, here's the trick. The state government will make the recommendation to the state government, central government, because the state government is the owner of Mopa. The central government is the one that granted environmental clearance despite the 2019 law. So the central government will say yes. This is where every NGO and every citizen of Goa now has a role to play at various levels. Whether it is on the street, activism, it is in court, it is writing about it in the papers, it is giving it the maximum possible adverse publicity. Do it all. Because if you don't, these processes are irreversible.
So I come back to then your point about private rights, and when a lot of these smaller parcels of land have been bought up, private right.
No. This is your right to sell the land. You may be the farmer. Nobody denies your right to sell the land. You sell the land.
But when you own it, you can.
But once you own it, if it is already subjected to a pre-existing condition of no development because it is a forest or a private forest, you bought it with that right, you are now trying to get a waiver of that restriction. That is what you challenge. See, let me put it like this. Some development will be permitted on privately owned land. It always is. To the extent that it is permitted, there is nothing we can do to stop it. But if he is trying to get, or the entity is trying to get excess permissions, greater buildability, or is trying to get rid of a condition that attaches to that land, you can certainly challenge that. Because those restrictions already apply and he bought it with those restrictions. And there you can make a compelling case. You can now make a compelling case. I'll tell you why. This can actually be flung back at the government. In 2019, they came with this shoddy EIA, which said there was nothing of ecological consequence. Came the Supreme Court judgment. What did the government do? It did not stand by its original EIA or the original EIA. The central government put together a body, the state government put together a body, and it accepted that it was wrong in the first place. Now, how can the state government say that its corrected EIA is wrong and you go back to the first one that there is no environment? They can't say it. They can't say it. So they are stuck with this, that the area around Mopa is ecologically sensitive. The state government is stuck with this. There is no way they are going to be able to deny this. It's a good thing to use in future. But it's a long battle. And you have to discover it. But let me tell you that one there and in South Goa, Mollem, they are the two critical battles that you have to win. Absolutely. Because of the level of ecological reform.
We have time for last two questions.
And 4 acts. One minute.
Yeah.
I'll try and keep my question as short as possible. The question comes to my first word earlier about water. And the question that is on everyone's mind, the construction on the top of hills and plateaus. Is there a way to curtail those constructions by stopping groundwater going up there in tankers for construction?
So, answer in short is yes. We did something very similar in Maharashtra. We were lucky to have their chief conservator forest was very gung-ho on our sides, and we approached it slightly differently because we pointed out that Maharashtra is the source of 3 major river systems and so on and so forth, and for afforestation is required, and there should be no extraction of groundwater permitted for additional construction in Maharashtra, either up there or transported from the road. And courts were able to pass a series of orders. And in a tactic like this, what you've got to do is you first get some sort of hard data about the number of constructions, the availability of water, and some data of how much water is being brought up and from where. Once you have that, this is something that is definitely worth doing, because you can tie this into rainfall patterns, climate change, the works.
So a lot of this has already been kind of started in the process.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter. At some point, you've got to get in on this as fast as possible. Don't waste time.
You're collecting data.
Rather, we get the data. Sorry, we had a question in the back there.
So this is regarding the noise pollution in Anjuna, and you mentioned a couple of things. Like one thing was data. Now I have been contacted Surena, and the first thing in fact she asked was, do you have data? Now for the past 1 year, it's just around maybe 1 or 2 of us who go late at night, and this is also a senior citizen. This is the only way to collect data on these venues that are blasting loud music. Now, you also asked another question, can noise pollution lead to environmental damage? Yes, because events like Sunburn and all these massive, they lead to a lot of garbage, there's traffic, there's wildlife, flora and fauna damage.
No, confuse issues.
Okay.
We will separate this.
Okay. So just...
Alright, so noise, unlike many other environmental issues, actually has a measurable metric. You know, there are two things. You know what the standardized norms, safety norms are, and you can fairly accurately, within a defined margin range, error margin range, find what the decibel level is there from a hall, from a party, from whatever it is. This can be done. This has to be measured. Now, 2 ways to do this. 1, you can measure it yourself. 2, you can go to court and ask the court to get the Goa Pollution Control Board to install meters and to report monthly readings or readings across the year. That also you can do.
So this is already done. The decibel levels allowed in the residential area after 10 p.m. stand at 45 decibels. Before 10 p.m. stand at 55 decibels. We have decibel readings of 105. Our own readings, our own videos, and even the GSPCBs.
So then you are on the right track. So now this has to be brought to
So there is a current case, which is a contempt case. And we also went on to say that there is no government authority who has against whom action is
taken. You got a live case, I'm not giving you advice. It's certainly not free.
So just what, as villagers,
That's your lawyer. You got a bunch of lawyers. What's here? Rapidly, tomorrow morning.
Okay, the last question.
Mine is, it's not a question, but it is something which I would like your advice on. You briefly touched about the CRZ and the CZMA, and recently the High Court has passed an order that they had to identify and demolish those structures which are illegal. But my confusion is, when the suo motu action was taken, why was the action only on the people who constructed and nothing on the authorities under whose watch all these things came on?
That is the problem that we've had in India from the beginning. You find me one single case, where an errand officer has lost his pay. Where is it? Had to pay a fine out of his salary or out of his pension. Better still lost his job and faced a disciplinary inquiry for doing what he knew was the wrong thing. Did you see the remarks of the Supreme Court Justice Oak's bench 3 days ago in the newspapers about the erstwhile Chief Secretary here of court? Is he going to, has he lost his job?
No, he just transferred.
He might. Do not underestimate Justice Oak. But only because it comes from there. This is generally, like corruption, is the other big problem in this country. No officer They will do anything that they know is seriously wrong, because they know at the end of it they're never going to be fine, they're never going to lose their job, so what does it matter? That's the uphill battle we face. If they knew that if they violate or allow violations of noise norms, somebody's head is going to roll. You take it from me that those authorities will never exceed that. You know, okay, we've got 2 minutes. Years and years ago, we were in Bandhavgarh. It was a holy weekend. And you know, in these tiger sanctuaries, they allow a limited number of vehicles in. And we were coming back out. And there was this huge traffic jam. And no vehicle was moving. So I got out and walked to the gate. And found that instead of 54 vehicles, the Chief Wildlife Warden had discovered that 55 vehicles had gone into the park. With one extra vehicle. He stopped the whole lot. And he said, tell me which resort had this vehicle. So they found it. So there and then he said, I'm suspending your license for the rest of the season. Now we're in February. Season going on till May. He's going to not be allowed a single vehicle into the national park. All his bookings are going to cancel. So this resort owner comes, he's begging and pleading, sorry, Gautam, ho gayi, ye wo. Then the guy who forced him to take the vehicle, I'm watching all this, gets out and threatens the Chief Wildlife Warden and says, you don't know who I am. I felt like saying, why I have forgotten. You don't know who I am. I will have you transfer you usual Indian style. So the Chief Wildlife Warden, who is standing, laughed and said, so this is Bandhavgarh. Where we are from Sarai Madhav. You are from Delhi. By the time that message comes by telegram to me, this guy's season will be over. Every 3 months the season will be over. You transfer me, I am in forest service, where will I go? I'll go from Bandhavgarh to somewhere else. To Bandhavgarh, what difference does it make? I am not bothered. But because of you, that resort owner was so angry that yes, he said, I want you out of my resort in the next 13 minutes, I don't care who you are. Now I have to deal with the Chief Wildlife Warden. But this is an officer doing his job and not caring about threatened consequences. But the reverse always works. I will let him go in the 55th car because I am at best going to be transferred and never do so. That's the problem.
Just like the Hydra.
That's a very good example.
So I think we should end this session because I'm afraid our cars will be locked in or our vehicles. So unless they So before you all go, if you all could just wait for 2 minutes, I just propose the vote of thanks to Justice Patel who really made time to be here. Justice Patel, your discussion with us reverberated personally in my spine, and I'm sure each of you would agree with me. I think, please give a round of applause. I personally wish I could be old enough to appear before you in court. Nonetheless, today I feel I am old enough because of this said appearance. Having the right mindset to tackle a PIL is truly half of the battle won. There is absolutely no doubt that there exists great strength in numbers, and the more we present our environmental concerns together, using the strength of each one of us that we possess will truly prove to be a winning collaboration. Your discussion with us, my Lord, has not only enlightened us in terms of knowledge, but also in terms of mindset and the right way to think.
use that word again, I'll never talk to you.
On behalf of each one of us present here, I thank you from the bottom of my soul. Thank you. We have Siddharthi here to present you a small token of
Thank you so much. Thank you.